Welcome to the Deep Dive. We unpack the critical topics shaping our world, aiming to give you the insights you need, just without all that information overload.
Great to be here.
So today we're really digging into a huge question, one that touches everything from global power dynamics right down to the tech you use every day. What's the future of artificial intelligence look like? And crucially, what role is America actually playing in shaping it? The stakes, well, they're incredibly high.
They absolutely are. And our deep dive today, it's really built around two key documents.
Okay.
On one side, you've got the official Winning the AI Race, America's AI Action Plan. That's the U.S. government's blueprint, basically, for global AI supremacy.
Supremacy, strong word.
Yes. But we're not just looking at its goals, ambitious as they are. We're also dissecting the potential, let's say, unintended consequences.
Ah, the other side of the coin.
Yes, exactly. And that comes from a really insightful analysis called America's AI Future, Omens and Warnings, and acts as a kind of counterpoint.
Right. So the action plan itself, the core idea seems pretty striking. It says, and I think this is a direct quote, unquestioned and unchallenged global technological dominance in AI isn't just like a nice to have. It's a national security imperative. It frames AI as the technology that's going to reshape global power, industries, daily life, everything. That sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is a huge deal. And the Omens report, it gives us a critical lens to view this ambition. It uses this powerful framework, these three omens, to flag the potential risks.
Omens. Okay, tell me about those.
Well, first, there's the omen of the unraveled tapestry. Think geopolitics. The risk that this push for dominance phrase international cooperation.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
And then, the omen of the cracked foundation. This points inward to potential cracks and instability within American society itself because of this strategy.
Domestic risks. Got it.
And the third.
The omen of the double-edged sword.
This one explores how the very tools of innovation, especially open innovation, which the plan promotes, could be, well, weaponized. Okay, that sets up our mission for this deep dive perfectly. We're going to explore how this intense drive for dominance in the action plan might actually, kind of paradoxically, work against its own goals.
Exactly. Undermine itself.
So let's start right at the core. The philosophy behind this plan. The report calls it the doctrine of dominance. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, at its heart, this winning the AI race idea sees AI as the ultimate geopolitical game changer. The plan explicitly says AI has the potential to reshape the global balance of power.
Right.
And achieving that unquestioned and unchallenged global technological dominance, there's that phrase again, it's framed as totally non-negotiable, a national security must-have.
And it's not just bureaucratic language, right? Officials are saying this out loud.
Oh, absolutely. Very direct. You have Secretary of State Marco Rubio stating publicly, winning the AI race is non-negotiable. He frames innovation itself as a battlefield for global influence.
Wow. Battlefield. That's incredibly strong language.
It really is. And what's super revealing about where this plan came from? It was commissioned by President Trump's executive order back on January 23rd, 2025.
Okay.
The title of that order was Removing Barriers to American Leadership in Artificial Intelligence. And crucially, it specifically revoked the previous Biden-era order on safe, secure, and trustworthy AI development.
Ah, so a direct reversal.
The direct reversal. This isn't just tweaking policy. It signals a really profound philosophical pivot, away from caution, away from safeguards towards this, well, unencumbered race for advantage, almost at any cost.
That is a huge strategic shift. So how does this doctrine, this dominance idea, actually translate into action? What are the main pillars of the strategy?
The plan lays out three core pillars. Pillar one is all about accelerating AI innovation. And this is where aggressive deregulation really takes center stage.
How so?
The plan explicitly calls for removing red tape and onerous regulation, flat out. It tells federal agencies, find and repeal rules that hinder AI.
Just get rid of them.
Pretty much. And it even suggests using federal funding as leverage to discourage states from passing their own AI regulations if they're deemed too burdensome.
Interesting stick to use there. And it also pushes for open source and open weight AI.
Yes, that's part of the acceleration piece. But then there's this other mandate, which is, well, it's definitely controversial. Federal AI models must be objective and free from top-down ideological bias.
Objective. Meaning what exactly?
Meaning specifically targeting concepts like diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI. The plan wants those elements out of federal AI considerations.
Okay, that's a major point. We'll likely come back to that. What's the second pillar?
Pillar two, Build American AI infrastructure. This acknowledges the absolutely massive physical and human capital needed.
Right. AI isn't just software.
Not at all. It calls for a rapid build-out of data centers, semiconductor fabrication plants, fabs. And a key part of this is streamlining federal permits.
Streamlining, meaning faster approvals.
Faster approvals, yes. Even fast-tracking environmental reviews under things like NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, and the Clean Water Act. Rules that usually make projects consider their environmental footprint.
So potentially cutting some environmental corners to build faster?
That seems to be the implication. And it's not just buildings. Pillar 2 also mandates a strategy to expand the national power grid for AI's huge energy appetite.
Which we know is enormous.
Exactly. And it focuses on training the workforce needed: electricians, HVAC technicians, the people who actually build and maintain this infrastructure. It's quite practical in that sense.
Ground level stuff. Okay, and pillar 3.
Pillar 3 is about leading in international AI diplomacy and security, projecting American AI power globally.
How does it plan to do that?
The cornerstone is exporting these secure, full-stack AI export packages. Think hardware, models, software, standards, the whole kit to allies.
The goal being?
To create a global ecosystem that becomes dependent on U.S. technology. Lock them in, essentially.
So build it here, then get everyone else hooked on it. This pillar also mentions tightening export controls, though, on things like advanced chips.
Yes, specifically targeting rivals like China. Tighten controls on critical tech. And it directs agencies to actively push back against rivals in international standards bodies. Make sure American standards prevail.
Okay, so 3 pillars. Accelerate innovation via deregulation, build massive infrastructure, and lead internationally through exports and controls.
That's the structure. And underpinning all of this are 2 kind of cross-cutting principles, or maybe attitudes.
Which are?
First, build, baby, build. It's this aggressive, very anti-regulatory, environmentally skeptical stance. It explicitly rejects what it calls radical climate dogma and bureaucratic red tape.
Echoes what you said about environmental reviews.
Exactly. The second principle is objective truth. This defines American values around freedom of speech and expression and objective truth rather than social engineering agendas.
And that connects back to the mandate about removing certain concepts from AI risk management.
Precisely. That's where the mandate comes in to revise NIST's AI risk management framework. NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology to literally eliminate references to misinformation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and climate change.
Wow. Okay. That's quite a statement.
It is. And what's really fascinating, or maybe concerning depending on your view, is how the Omens report points out what it sees as inherent contradictions baked into the action plan itself.
Contradictions? Like what?
Well, think about it. How do you realistically build a global AI alliance, which the plan mentions, while simultaneously pursuing unquestioned and unchallenged global technological dominance? Those seem fundamentally at odds.
Right. Dominance doesn't usually scream partnership.
Exactly. The report suggests this isn't just a small inconsistency, it's a core tension. It could actually make the whole strategy self-defeating, turning potential partners into wary competitors instead.
Are there other contradictions like that?
Oh yeah. There's the paradox of pushing open source innovation, making AI tools widely available, while at the same time heavily tightening export controls on the foundational hardware needed to run them.
Open software, closed hardware.
Sort of, yeah. And then there's the promise of a worker-first AI agenda bumping right up against these expert projections of significant and potentially unmanageable job displacement, thanks to deregulation and faster automation.
So it really sounds like the plan might be pulling in opposite directions in some really critical areas.
That's the argument, that these internal tensions are bound to create external problems. And this leads us right into the first big warning from the Omens report, the omen of the unraveled tapestry. Geopolitical isolation and potential escalation.
Okay, so this sounds like that specter of isolation idea you mentioned. The report thinks all this dominance talk is actually pushing allies away.
That's the core argument. It's creating, quote, anxiety in foreign capitals about dependence on U.S. cloud providers and American tech in general. Nobody wants to be totally reliant on a partner who explicitly seeks dominance over them.
That makes sense.
And what's really concerning is how the aggressive export controls, even if they're mainly aimed at China, cause huge collateral damage.
How so?
They impose these incredibly complex, the report calls them Byzantine restrictions, on something like 150 countries. We're talking key partners like India, much of the majority world, It's not just an inconvenience, it breeds distrust, pushing countries to look elsewhere or develop their own alternatives.
So instead of leading a unified bloc, the U.S. might accidentally fragment the global tech scene, create a balkanized digital landscape, as the report puts it, maybe even a digital iron curtain.
That's the fear. It strongly incentivizes nations to pursue sovereign AI, building their own domestic capabilities or maybe align with other blocs, perhaps led by China or others. It's a very different future from an interconnected U.S.-led one. And there's also this kind of counterintuitive risk, the innovation through scarcity paradox.
Oh, one.
By denying China the most advanced chips, the U.S. might inadvertently force them to get really good at developing super efficient algorithms, making more out of less computing power.
Necessity being the mother of invention.
Exactly. We're already seeing examples like some Chinese models, DeepSeek, for instance, showing remarkable efficiency. So imagine if or when China does develop its own top-tier hardware.
Yeah.
They could end up combining it with this hyper-efficient software.
And potentially leapfrog the U.S.?
It's a possibility the report raises, which leads to this core idea they call the dominance paradox.
Okay, what's that?
The paradox is that the very actions taken to secure unquestioned dominance might ultimately lead to a net loss of U.S. influence as the rest of the world actively reconfigures itself to resist being dominated.
Wow. That's a powerful and kind of worrying thought.
It is. And this whole competitive framing, this race narrative, it also triggers echoes of an arms race.
An AI arms race?
Well, when a major power says winning an AI race is non-negotiable, like we heard, it practically forces other nations to respond in kind, competitively, defensively.
Right, it sets a certain tone.
Yeah.
And the danger there is?
It fuels instability. It prioritizes speed and maybe offensive capabilities over collaborative safety research. The report warns this could lead to accidents with powerful, poorly understood systems.
Accidents. Like what?
We're talking about potentially chilling scenarios, things like hyperwar, where the speed of AI-driven conflict outpaces human ability to control it.
Yeah.
Or a battlefield singularity, huge risks of catastrophic miscalculation.
That's deeply concerning.
Now, people debate whether AI arms race is the perfect term, but it's definitely shaping the U.S.-China dynamic, especially with China aiming to be the AI leader by 2030. And all this is happening in what the Carnegie Endowment calls a dangerous regulatory vacuum for military AI.
No agreed-upon rules for AI in warfare.
Very few. And if you compare the AI strategies of the U.S., the EU, China, you see really different philosophies, different legal approaches, different ideas about innovation. It's not one race. It's divergent paths, maybe even clashing ones.
Which seems like a perfect transition to the second warning, the omen of the cracked foundation, the domestic risks inside the U.S. from all this acceleration.
Exactly. And let's start with what the report calls the unfettered golem. Remember that pillar about deregulation?
While moving red tape, yeah.
This is the risk associated with that. The philosophical core is the systematic removal of red tape and onerous regulation. Specific directives. Federal agencies must repeal rules hindering AI. The FTC has to review its investigations. And that threat, withhold federal funds from states with burdensome AI rules.
It's a very aggressive push against regulation, and the report draws some historical parallels.
It draws some really stark ones, yes.
Yeah.
This approach, prioritizing speed and profit over safeguards, it sees alarming parallels to historically harmful industries that were initially unregulated. Think tobacco, lead paint, asbestos. Industries where public health was, frankly, sidelined for commercial gain for a long time. The unfettered golem metaphor captures it, creating something incredibly powerful, but unleashing it without the necessary constraints.
Risking systemic accidents, losing public trust.
Exactly. A potentially dangerous creation running wild.
That is a sobering thought. Then there's the whisper of displacement. Jobs.
Right. The action plan presents this uniformly sunny picture. It talks about a worker-first agenda, insists AI will complement rather than replace people, dismisses any doomsday narratives about job loss.
But the experts disagree.
Pretty strongly.
Yeah.
Major economic researchers paint a very different picture. Goldman Sachs, for instance, projected AI could automate tasks equivalent to 300 million full-time jobs globally.
300 million.
Globally, yes. And studies from places like MIT, Boston University, they warn about, say, 2 million U.S. manufacturing workers displaced by 2025 alone. Specific sectors like admin, data entry may be 38% automated by 2030, customer service. Even many white-collar roles are seen as highly vulnerable.
And the usual answer is retraining, but the report is skeptical about that too.
Very skeptical that rapid retraining can handle the scale. Analyses, like from Brookings, point out just how hard it is to predict future job needs accurately. Plus, workers face real barriers to retraining time, cost, access, and the sheer infrastructure needed for effective mass retraining. It would be overwhelming. It's just not a simple fix.
Okay, so deregulation risks, job risks. What about that objectivity mandate, the blind eye?
Yes, the blind eye of objectivity. This comes back to that controversial order to revise the NIST AI risk management framework to cut references to misinformation, DEI, climate change, all in the name of objective truth.
And the report argues this is misguided.
Fundamentally misguided, yes, because AI models learn from data, and real-world data is biased. It reflects our society's existing biases.
So ignoring bias doesn't make AI objective.
No, the report argues it makes AI blind to its own biases. It effectively ensures those biases get baked in and even amplified. Think about AI trained on old loan data. If that data reflects past discrimination, the AI will replicate it, unless you specifically build in checks and balances, like those DEI frameworks provide.
So removing the frameworks makes the problem worse.
Potentially much worse. Research from University College London talks about a pernicious feedback loop, where biased AI reinforces human biases. Plus, it creates practical headaches for U.S. companies trying to comply with international rules like the EU AI Act, which requires bias mitigation.
Okay, and the final domestic risk area, the scorched earth strategy.
Right. This ties back to that build, baby, build
Yeah.
ethos and its rejection of radical climate dogma. The report warns this ignores AI's massive and exponentially growing resource footprint.
The environmental cost.
Exactly. Electricity used by data centers, forecast to double by 2030, could equal Germany's entire national demand. Some new centers are even reportedly turning to coal power. Yeah. And water usage is incredible water intensive.
Yeah.
A single query to a big language model can use up half a liter of fresh water. Then there's e-waste. The short lifespan of AI chips creates a growing mountain of hazardous electronic waste.
And companies aren't upfront about this.
There's a severe lack of transparency, the report finds. Some estimates suggest true emissions could be 600% higher than what companies report. So the warning is stark. Achieving digital supremacy via a scorched earth environmental strategy could cause irreversible damage.
So the cumulative picture here, deregulation risks, job displacement, embedded bias, environmental damage. The report suggests this erodes the social contract.
Yes, potentially leading to a public backlash against AI, maybe even resistance to building the very infrastructure the plan calls for. It cracks the domestic foundation needed for the strategy to succeed.
Which brings us neatly to the third big warning, the omen of the double-edged sword. How this push for open innovation can be weaponized.
Precisely. And it starts with opening Pandora's box. The action plan champions open source and open way AI, making powerful models widely available.
Which sounds good for innovation.
It is good for innovation. It democratizes access. But, the report argues, it's also an open invitation for bad actors, a profound double-edged sword.
What are the immediate security risks they see?
They're pretty severe. We're already seeing jailbroken open source models on the dark web. Models modified to bypass safety features.
Used for what?
Generating sophisticated malware, highly convincing phishing emails, automating social engineering attacks, making scams much more effective and scalable. Beyond that, there are big supply chain risks.
Like,
Things like data poisoning, deliberately feeding bad data to corrupt a model during training, or messing with the model's weights, or exploiting insecure code libraries these models depend on. These attacks are often stealthy, difficult to detect, undermining trust in the whole ecosystem.
okay, that's worrying. Then there's the seed of plague, biological threats.
Yeah. The action plan does acknowledge CBRNE risks chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and it calls for better biosecurity. But the dual-use nature of AI here is incredibly potent,
How so? AI helping create bioweapons?
potentially. The same AI that can speed up drug discovery or vaccine design could also be used to help design and create biological threats. It could lower the skill threshold needed to engineer dangerous pathogens, maybe making them more transmissible or deadly.
Can current AI actually design a whole new virus?
The national academies say not yet, not from scratch. But it can help design toxins or model features that increase virulence. So it's less about creating something totally novel right now and more about making existing threats worse or easier to produce. It creates this critical, dangerous race between offense and defense in biology.
A very high-stakes race. And the final part of this omen, the liar's truth, deepfakes and disinformation.
Exactly. The plan talks about malicious deepfakes, AI-generated synthetic media. It focuses on detection tools and adapting legal rules of evidence.
But the report says that's not enough.
Profoundly insufficient is the phrase used. Because hyper-realistic fakes don't just fool people sometimes. They risk fatally undermining the very concept of evidence.
Yeah.
In court, in news, in society.
How does that work?
It leads to something called the liar's dividend. This is the really insidious part. When deep fakes become common and plausible, even genuine incriminating video or audio can be dismissed. Someone could just say, oh, that's obviously a deep fake.
Undermining accountability completely.
Exactly. It erodes trust catastrophically. Trust in media, in institutions, even in our own senses. It pushes us towards a post-truth environment where disinformation thrives and polarization deepens.
And the core problem here is the asymmetry.
That's the bottom line for this omen. AI makes offense, creating fake content, designing malware, exploring dangerous bio-designs relatively cheap and easy. Defense, on the other hand, is immense and scales exponentially. It's much harder and more expensive to defend against these threats than to create them.
Okay, so these three omens paint a pretty bleak picture of the potential downsides. Geopolitical blowback, domestic fractures, weaponized tech. If the risks are so stark, what's the way forward? Does the Omens report offer solutions?
It does. It's not just a critique. It lays out several strategic recommendations aimed at mitigating these exact risks. A different path, essentially.
What's the first one?
The first tackles that dominance paradox head-on. It says, reframe leadership. Move away from dominance towards responsible stewardship.
Stewardship, meaning what?
Meaning emphasizing shared benefits, collaborative governance, working through international bodies like the OECD, maybe even engaging with proposals like China's idea for a global AI cooperation organization. The aim is to build trust, to make U.S. AI leadership attractive because of shared values, not just raw power.
Okay, shift the tone from dominance to collaboration. What's next?
Second, address the risks of just tearing down all regulations. The recommendation is to institute smart regulation as a foundation for innovation, not an obstacle to it.
Smart regulation, like the EU's approach.
Something like that, yes. A risk-based and adaptive framework. You prohibit the really unacceptable stuff, social scoring, manipulative tech designed to exploit vulnerabilities. You put strict safeguards on high-risk systems, healthcare, justice, critical infrastructure, and you maintain a lighter touch for low-risk AI. Tailor the rules to the risk.
Makes sense. Third recommendation.
This tackles that blind eye issue, the bias problem. It calls for reinstating and modernizing ethical guardrails.
Starting with reversing that NIST decision.
Immediately reverse the decision to strip DEI and other risk factors from the NIST framework. But go further. Launch major national research into how to tackle bias technically and socio-technically. Find better ways to identify bad data, develop fairness metrics that work, create auditing tools. The goal should be U.S. leadership in fair, equitable, and trustworthy AI.
So lean into solving the bias problem, don't ignore it.
Fourth, addresses the environmental impact of the scorched earth problem. The report proposes what it calls a Green New Deal for AI, mandating sustainable development.
How would that work?
Mandate standardized, transparent reporting on energy use, water consumption, carbon footprint, e-waste. Make companies actually measure and disclose their impact. Then, tie federal incentives funding, contracts to meeting stringent environmental performance standards.
Like requiring renewable energy use?
Exactly. Pushing for efficient cooling, promoting a circular economy for hardware so we're not just creating mountains of e-waste, and actively fund research into green AI, more efficient algorithms and hardware.
Okay, sustainability built in. Fifth recommendation. This must be about the jobs issue.
It is. Recognizing that rapid retraining alone isn't enough for the potential scale of job displacement, the recommendation is to create a comprehensive 21st century social contract for the AI era.
Sounds ambitious. What's in it?
It needs several components. First, massive investment in lifelong learning systems, maybe individual worker retraining accounts people can use throughout their careers. Second, modernizing the social safety net, things like portable health insurance not tied to a specific job, retirement reform. And third, seriously exploring innovative economic policies.
Things like wage insurance for displaced workers, maybe a negative income tax, even piloting universal basic income programs to see how they work in an AI-driven economy. Thinking bigger about economic security.
Right, a broader safety net for a changing economy.
Mm-hmm.
And the final recommendation, it must address that double-edged sword, the security risks.
Exactly. To counter the asymmetric threat from open tech, the report recommends securing the ecosystem with a defense-in-depth strategy.
Defense in depth.
Meaning multiple layers of security. Balance a promotion of open source with a really robust national security approach. That means secure the supply chain, fund tools to verify AI model integrity, use cryptographic signing, track data provenance, create clear liability rules if things go wrong.
Okay, secure the tech itself. What about the deepfakes and disinformation?
Combat the infodemic. Create a national task force focused on deepfakes. Combine tech solutions like digital watermarking with nationwide media literacy campaigns so people are better equipped to spot fakes, and update legal evidence standards for the digital age.
And the biological threats. Outpace biological threats. Aggressively fund biodefense and biosecurity R&D. Use AI itself for early warning systems, for rapidly developing countermeasures like vaccines or treatments. And critically, emphasize international cooperation here, because biothreats don't respect borders.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a set of recommendations, a very different vision from the pure dominance
A
approach.
fundamentally different approach, yes. More balanced.
So bringing it all together, this has been an incredible deep dive. The core tension that the Omens and Warnings report highlights is just crystal clear, isn't it? You have America's AI action plan aiming laser-focused on global dominance. But in doing so, it risks triggering geopolitical isolation, creating domestic instability, and even weaponizing the very innovation it wants to champion.
The three omens laid bare. Unraveled tapestry, cracked foundation, double-edged sword.
Right. But what's powerful, I think, is that the report doesn't just stop at warnings. It offers this concrete, actionable path forward, a way to pursue AI leadership that's maybe more balanced, more sustainable, and ultimately maybe even more successful in the long run.
And it really forces us to ask a fundamental question. As we race into this AI future, what matters more? Is it just about building the most powerful tech the fastest? Or is it about how we manage that power?
Yeah.
How do we, as a society, balance that undeniable pull of rapid progress with our responsibility? Our responsibility to ensure safety, equity, a reality we can actually share and trust. What do you think is the most critical choice we have to make right now based on all this?
That's the question to ponder. As you listen, think about these huge strategic choices, not just as abstract policy, but how they might ripple out and affect your own life, your work, the world you live in. How will these grand AI plans actually play out on the ground? Something to think about. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.